Welcome back to the next part in our video series looking at Foster's intertextuality. So I want you to stop and think for a moment. So far, what steps have we taken in addressing short answer questions? We've done a few things, and what you may not have noticed is each lesson that you have participated in focused on a very different step. First, we looked at reading and restating the question. You had to submit your sentence starters in Canvas to be able to progress. We started with, how does the idea of intertextuality connect to the text? That was our prompt, and from there we thought, what is the question asking me? What keywords from the question should I use in my answer? And how can I rewrite the question to create a sentence starter? Well, you've done this several times. So here's a good example. In Disney's Beauty and the Beast, Foster's idea of intertextuality helps readers identify the theme in a variety of ways. You're going to use your own sentence starter for intertextuality, but we're not going to make you submit your sentence starter this time. The next thing we looked at was answering the question, how does the idea of intertextuality connect to the text? So we gave you some frames there to help out as well. What do I have to know in order to answer this question? Where can I find the answer? What is the answer? Is my answer complete with a restatement of the question? We looked at all of those parts to help us to figure out what it was. So for this one, you're going to need to connect Foster's idea of intertextuality. I'm probably going to need to define it, and I know I need to build in the academic vocabulary of allusion and archetype. I'm also going to need to find some connections between this story and another story, or among multiple stories. I'm also going to have to know the theme of Beauty and the Beast in order to connect the stories. For you, you need to know the theme of the Scarlet Letter. And remember, we talked about you might want to use the same theme for all of your paragraphs. Once you look at how to answer the question correctly and completely, you're moving into that letter C, where you're going to cite evidence. When you're citing evidence, you want to introduce Foster when you're speaking of his ideas, and then you want to give an in-text citation at the end when it's needed. We're looking at MLA formatting in this course. Foster is a text, so I would use his last name and the page number. For example, it would look something like this. You'll notice there's nothing between the name and the page number. There's no P for the letter or the word page. There's no number sign. There's no comma, nothing. And my punctuation is at the end after those parentheses. That's really important. When writing it in a sentence, that punctuation matters. And based on current MLA standards, it's just like this. Make sure it is outside and after the citation information. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. For Disney's Beauty and the Beast, I would do it differently because it's not a print text. For this source, it's a film, so I would use the director and the film title. So this one for me is going to be a little bit different. For me, it's going to be, let me go back to the director's name, Trusdale, comma, and the title of the film. Long work, long lines, short work, short lines. There's no page number, it's not a print resource, and that's the justification there. So when I'm citing evidence, I really want to make sure that I've got that format right. Now, when you answered, you may already have your evidence from the text in your answer, but I just want to remind you of these questions that we've been looking at. How did I get from the question to this answer? How do I know that this is the answer? Does this support my claim? And is there more than one piece of evidence in the text to support the answer? You've gone through this process, you've identified your answer, so I'm going to take you through and show you my first draft. As you're looking at this draft, you can keep in mind that you're expected to include citations as needed in your text as well. Here you can see my citations immediately. This is a draft. Remember, in the first draft, you're going to focus on getting your content. That's really the most important part because we can go back and we can fix that grammar stuff later. Basically, what I did is I went back to the information in my JRC and I used my JRC to come up with my answers. So I can look easily at my paragraph and put it together based on the information that was in my JRC. Again, I've given the information for where it came from. Right here, Disney's Beauty and the Beast. I have credited Foster with his idea of intertextuality. Helps readers to identify the theme in a variety of ways. According to Foster, note the way that I have done my quotations for my direct quote, and I didn't mean to, but when I circled that 29, I accidentally marked out the period there. So you want to make sure that that grammar, the MLA citations, that's all correct. Stories grow out of stories. He asserts the connections between the stories are elements of intertextuality, which help bring the story to life and provide readers with deeper meaning from the text. Specifically, these elements come from application of the language of reading or looking for illusion archetype patterns and symbols across different texts. In analyzing Disney's Beauty and the Beast, so what the point here is, and I'm not going to read this whole thing to you because you can read it to yourself, but you can see that the focus was on content. We got this little run-on thing going on, but look at this right here. Look what happened. There's a connection there to the very first section that we looked at. So that's interesting that those pull together and that I'm building on that prior knowledge. When you are looking down here and you're seeing all of these different connections, I've used those buzzwords about the archetype, I've talked about the illusion, I've talked about those connections. I want you to go and make sure with your paragraph that you have an idea that concludes the paragraph, okay? It's important to draw it to a close, and here's a good example of how to do that. Therefore, Beauty and the Beast is look at that, different from any written text, as intertextuality allows readers to connect with the story and recognize the power of steadfast love can overcome any obstacles as the universal message or theme of the story. Again, your first draft, all about that content, getting your ideas on paper. Now, I'll take a moment and show you my revised draft. You can see that it's been edited. I've taken out a little bit, some irrelevant stuff. Also needed to add some citations that I didn't have before, because you want to make sure that if it's not common knowledge, then you really want to cite it. If you have any questions about MLA citations, where do you need the citation or how do you do the citation, feel free to ask your teacher. You do want to make sure that information is correct. Take a moment if you'd like to review. You can push pause on the screen. You can check out the submitted version, and you can actually review and go back to the original draft so that you can see that. Good luck!